Now we're starting to see that northern turn we've been expecting this entire time. And as you can see behind me, this is one of the roadways here in Cedar Key. You can see those waves splashing up and over already, and the hurricane is still over 100 miles off the coast. To tell you the size of this storm and the impacts that it's going to have later on this evening into the overnight hours. Now, I think my game plan right now is I'm actually going to head a little bit further north towards Steinhatchee, and I think that's where the northeast quadrant of that storm, which is where those highest winds and the peak storm surge is going to be. But that doesn't mean that's narrowed down to there. There's going to be impacts all the way up and down the coast, anywhere from Tampa all the way up to Alligator Point.
And Aaron, yeah, we've been seeing that flooding, the crashing waves behind you. We're seeing some video from earlier across parts of Florida. Is there anything you think from this storm that's going to be most memorable?
100% the storm surge, and also how far inland we are likely to see those hurricane-related impacts. We have hurricane warnings as far inland as nearly Macon, Georgia, which is not something that we typically see with our tropical cyclones. But due to the fast forward speed upwards of 23 miles an hour, it's going to not weaken quite as quickly. So we're going to see those higher impacts further inland than usual. And then we also have the flash flooding aspect of this that's going to be taking aim at the North Carolina mountains. So this is going to be a storm that there's no other way around it that we're going to remember for quite some time, whether that be a Category 3 storm or higher. It's going to have very significant impacts very far inland like we don't typically see.
And Aaron, as a storm chaser, is there any different kind of preps you do here when it comes to hurricanes versus chasing maybe tornadoes out through the plains? I mean, we've seen plenty of tornado warnings. Just anything that you do differently for preparation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically an art when you're trying to chase a hurricane, because there's so many variables that go into it, all the way down to riding out in a safe spot, all the way to scouting out hundreds, well, maybe not hundreds of miles, but quite a significant area of the coastline. And you also have to bring extra gas, food, and water in case you get stranded for several days at a time. So there's just a lot of planning and preparation that goes into chasing a hurricane. And you have to account for those wobbles like we typically see. You may have to move a little bit further east or west at the very last minute.
So we're in Treasure Island, which is still Hillsborough County, and the storm surge has already started to come in. You can see here, it's not too bad. This is, maybe 6-8 inches of standing water. Just the very beginnings, of course. I would take you here and just show you some things. You can see the road completely impassable in this area. That looks like a local. Maybe he's leaving for the day. I'm not sure, but definitely there's residents that do not leave this area. We're talking to several people earlier today, and a lot of people do ride out the storm. We are right on the water, just past where that woman is getting into her car. There is the Tampa Bay, the bay there. So we are in an area that is expected to get a 5 to 8 foot storm surge later today. So the beginnings now. The low tide was around 12:30 today. So we're expecting, of course, the water to continue to rise throughout the day. The height of the high tide here will be 11 o'clock tonight. So that's when they are most concerned with the rise of the waters. But we talked to some folks here that have weathered a couple of hurricanes, and they did decide to stay. Here's what one of them had to say.
This is the second time we've stayed in a storm, and because it always generally floods out here, and we live on stilts, and so we flood downstairs, but we know that living on the beach, that's going to be the way it is. We're a little concerned about later, so we're trying to decide whether we're leaving or not leaving.
So a lot of people, again, trying to make that judgment call. A lot of folks have told me that it is common to lose power here. Of course, no Wi-Fi, so the comforts that most people enjoy when you're in a hurricane will not be the case here in a few hours.